Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this beautiful panel discussion on rural entrepreneurship development in India. I am delighted to be here. My name is Caroline Audoir de Valter. I am a French Canadian living in India for the past 2 decades, founder of a nonprofit called Hope for the Children Foundation. To start this discussion, I would like to introduce our panel discussion. Welcome to Pankaj Singh, CEO of Ed Health High Foundation. The foundation focuses on inequality, primarily in the rural India. It also collaborates with Change Maker to harness the power of partnership, to engage community, inspire action, and drive social change. Pankaj, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. My next guest is Prashant Singh, founder of Bana, the Indian art investment company. Prashant is passionate about promoting traditional art and craft of India. His motto is to preserve, promote, empower, and made art and craft in our country. Welcome, Prashant.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody.
Our third panelist is Raghuraman. Raghu is the person behind, Raghu, founder and CEO of EN Energy. Raghu is basically providing energy across 500 Indian towns and has been enabling financial inclusion for over 3.2 million of people in rural India. Welcome, Raghu. Great. Thank you so much all for being here. Let me set a bit the context here on our discussion. I think that we cannot start this conversation without setting up the context on how COVID has affected our life, and especially the rural ecosystem. As you all know, we have seen a reverse migration of more than 2 crores of workers going back to their villages, whether it's by train, by bus, or walking kilometers. So some even says that this could be India's biggest migration since the independence. These are clearly unprecedented time, and COVID has tested the reliance of community, especially in rural India. When we think that 70% of people are living in rural India, in 650 villages across the country, we understand that there are many challenges already there, such as unemployment, poor infrastructure, illiteracy, and surely not enough of technology. COVID-19 also brought in a critical issue on both sides of the value chain, whether it's the supply or the demand. But going ahead, I do believe that the situation also brings a new opportunity. I would like to request our panelists to share more detail about your work, your journey, where you operate, and at the end of your introduction, I would like you to tell us a bit more about what has been the challenges that you have been facing. I would like now to pass the mic to Pankaj.
Thank you for inviting me. Glad to be here. I am the CEO of Haath Foundation. So it's a 10-year-old not-for-profit organization. We primarily work with rural youth, and especially youth dropped out of school, and so intervene and sort of try to guide them onto economic pathways. So we sort of have a ringside view of what is going on, on this topic of what's happening in rural India. So we have sort of trained about 20,000, 15,000 youth so far, and about 5,000 of them have gone into entrepreneurship, or they get into jobs, or follow some an education pathway. And essentially, we deal with the disconnected youth who drop out of school. So they are what we call the missing middle, and they are in a crevice. And once you drop out of the platform of the government infrastructure in schooling infrastructure, you actually get lost. So we sort of have a ringside view of what goes on at the bottom of the pyramid and the really underprivileged. So in terms of the challenges COVID has brought along, I think there's one. I mean, everybody talks about money now, but there are a lot of hidden challenges in terms of. I think what COVID has actually done is shown brought to the top the social fractures in society. While we always knew they were there, it's now there's a bright light shown upon it. So inequity is now everyday conversation rather than something people talking about it in seminars and all that. So now it's become mainstream. So I think the right conversation has started. Let's see where it goes. So that's about me and Head LI.
Thank you so much, Pankaj. Prashant, would you like to introduce yourself and talk about your challenges?
Good evening, everybody, and thank you. Thank you for inviting us over here. I'm actually a founder of Haath Bana, the India Art Investment Company, and we actually work with the rural artisans across India, which actually comprises almost of 7 million artisans, out of which we actually handle or work with almost 5,000 artisan families who are associated with us, or we actually work with them to support their employability, livelihood. The theme had been always, or the core motto of the company had been always uh, preserving the culture. Culture means that how do we pass on this culture to the one generation to the another, the way they have been actually sustained over the period of time and creating livelihoods. Right? For the COVID, it's an interesting situation, and I will actually just put it a word, taking a cue from Pankaj. That means, yes, it has actually shown the inequity. Interestingly, it has actually taken away the what do you call if any shed was there, or if anything was, it was always existing, fine, but now it is more visible because uh, we all have stopped ourselves and been able to see it. Fortunately, since we are being engaged with one of the biggest uh, activity, because our whole business model is actually dependent on the events, right, which happens, and where we promote the artisans work. We actually saw this coming pretty early, right? Pretty early in the sense that if I actually share my insight, that we actually saw this coming in the first week of March itself, right? And there we during this COVID, where the livelihood had been always been our in this COVID also, our livelihood was always the primary motive, right? We have almost engaged and repurposed 500 artisans, right, to get involved into making some other activity, like for example the cotton mask, and we were amongst the first one to start actually working on the cotton mask in the country, fine, which got actually uh, uh, got picked up by people very effectively. So I'm telling you that this COVID will teach us a lot, and we might have to change a lot individually, collectively, and as a country as a whole.
Lovely, lovely. Thank you so much for sharing your experience. Raghu, would you like to
Yeah.
introduce yourself, please?
Yes. Thank you, Caroline, for such a nice introduction. Good evening, everybody. So Ehands Energy is the social enterprise that I founded about 9 years back, and this is actually my second stint as an entrepreneur, as a social entrepreneur. My first stint was in 2000 to 2002 when I set up a wireless ISP in Western UP and Uttarakhand. Of course, that didn't go well, so we had to wind it up. It's very capital intensive. and 64 kbps was the highest speed one can get for 30 lakh rupees of lease line. So those were the eras of that time. So the social, impact, social activity was something that caught on with me in the early 2000s. So that venture, was short-lived, but I came back to corporate world and I set up this. So this had a clear purpose because the last mile energy, we still have close to 150 million people in our country who do not have consistent electricity. And I mean, it's very erratic. And we're trying to solve that problem with various solutions like home lighting systems and solar lanterns. But that's not the quality of electricity that that they can live with. They should get better. So we are all focusing on that. So we are an ecosystem of few companies focused on creating the last mile electricity. So when it comes to, so we have about 35 microgrids across India, in Maharashtra, in Uttar Pradesh, in Uttarakhand, Himachal, and Sikkim. We work at high altitudes frequently. We've also done a lot of installations in the current conflict zone in Pangong Lake and Chumar, and we work for the India-Tibet Border Police and the Indian Army. So we were initially a technology company and we were very focused on technology. We came into the social impact as a frontline activity much later. So we have been focusing on that. But COVID-19 has two dimensions for us. One is that the communities with whom we work, where we have provided the energy, access to them, or we have set up the grids. So obviously, they are not in a position to pay any money for maintaining the grid. So these were all blended finance, some bit of donor money, some bit of, commercial capital and sustenance through some subscription model. Everything has collapsed. The CSR money is also not likely to come out for at least another 1 year. So I really don't know. At this point of time, we don't have any answer to how we are going to take care of these communities to whom we have been providing the service. On the other hand, our own organization structure, we have to feed 50 odd families. That is a challenge. So for some reason, we have been able to do this. So at this point of time, COVID-19 is very baffling, unprecedented, and it's forcing us to think very different. But we are resisting the idea of downsizing, which the corporate worlds are all doing, downsizing, shedding people and things. We haven't done that so far. And we hope we can come back to fight this setback soon.
So I can see that it has affected your organization and also the way you work ahead and downsizing. Was that the same thing for you, Prashant? Did you have to downsize also your team?
Interestingly, we actually work with very limited or very thin staff, right? So, and just to actually maintain the basic employability model, fine, we haven't actually downsized our team, fine. We are still trying to chug along with the things what we have to actually been promised about, right? Hopefully things actually improve as we actually move forward, or we learn to new ways to actually supporting this whole activity. So till now, fingers crossed, touch wood, we have not downsized.
Great, thank you so much. What about you, Pankaj? How this affected you? Did you have to re-strategize, rethink how you're working, re-budget, and downsize also your team?
I think we had to throw the playbook out of the window. Everything is gone for the toss. It's unprecedented. Downsizing has not been much of an issue. I think, especially my sense would be, if, among the larger NGOs and all that, hasn't been much of a problem. But there's been a serious reallocation of what we need to do. So a lot of the programmatic impacts. Time is of essence. So now it's more about throughput and sort of supporting the communities we work in. So it's becoming more time intensive. The outcomes are you start the program today and see an outcome tomorrow. So it's times where you have to have immediate impact. Is that so? We are seeing a lot of reallocation, and I think strategically, if you see, we worked with youth dropped out of school, and we had 6 months to intervene with them before we could connect them to a pathway. Now, most of our conversations is, can you connect someone in 6 weeks? And unfortunately, the jobs are not there. And again, coming to the topic we have here, all right, entrepreneurship has moved from one of the outcomes to the outcome. So how do we get people to stand on their feet? I don't think the economy is there to sustain jobs. It'll be a while before the wheels turn and we get back into a what do you call a labor-driven economy. That's not going to happen soon. So entrepreneurship has become right and center. And how do I put it? I think what we wanted to do 24 months down the line in entrepreneurship, everybody around this table knew, I think we had to do it, but we are having to do it now. So things has been pulled forward quite drastically, which in a way is the silver lining. I think India should be an economy of people who sustain themselves. The jobs are not going to be there for obvious reasons. It's just that you're doing it under the shadow of vulnerability, which is what sort of pains. The pain will be there. I think we see it every day. But there'll always be a better tomorrow. But we could have probably done without the vulnerability for the marginalized classes.
Yes, exactly. What do we do with all these people that came back, right? Each one of you, I think the common point that I see here are providing livelihood, right? So now what do we do? What kind of challenges do you foresee going ahead? Because now we have more population, we have more skill also. If we think that all the all these workers are coming with a lot of skills with them, how do we establish going ahead the new normal? Can Prashant, can you talk to us about this? How do we establish the new normal ahead with all these more population that we're gonna have to deal with and to do your work also?
It is actually, we never actually had experienced this migration in a large scale in our lifetime, right? So it was never like people who used to say that there was a huge migration during independence, right? And I don't know, I wasn't part of, none of us sitting over here were the part of it, right? Our parents would have seen it, or maybe the grandparents would have seen it, right? The way the people actually moved out from the urban area to the rural area, right? Which actually took almost 10-15 years in a migration mode. So the people moving from the rural area to urban area, it happened in 10-15 years, right? Which we saw it happening in 10-15 days, or maybe 4 weeks. The people actually started moving in. So one of the biggest challenge what we have actually seen, fine, that the people who are actually in the urban area, they actually moved out from the rural area just because there was not enough opportunities which were there, or they realized that the farmland, the farm income was not sufficient enough to sustain those livelihoods and all this things of the life. So they came for the more bigger opportunities, or the simpler opportunities, you can say that, or means less hard work, because the farm may actually be requiring a much more hard work or continuous employment, fine, to the urban area. But in urban area also, interestingly, they all lived by the day. So when you are living by the day, which we call it dihari, you eat it, you earn in a day and you spend in a day, right? You save a little bit for your, so when the factories got closed, when the shops got closed and all, they only saw their home, the own home, which was actually helpful for them, and they all moved over there. Frankly speaking, it has to be seen. This migration, as the reverse migration, has to be seen in a multiple direction. The one of is the economic condition, that whether the existing farming will actually be having enough support, fine, to sustain the reverse migration people. That is one. How much the government will be able to support them, and for how long, with the dole or whatever the money what they will be able to get. How much the state government will be able to create through the Manrega scheme or the various schemes, the job opportunity on the ground in the villages and the semi-urban areas, tier 2 towns and all. For how long these people will be able to survive there in the village, right? Because they have been actually living outside the village for some 10 years, 5 years, 6 years, something like this. uh, how much these guys are actually, how many of these guys are actually creating a pressure or competition for the existing livelihood of the existing people. Look, so the while we were having a discussion, fine, a barber moving out from Delhi to Bihar, fine, he may think that, okay, fine, I'll actually open a barber shop over there. But what about the existing barber who was actually doing that, fine? He maybe not be comfortable with that, because, okay, fine, this guy has come, or the plumber, whether there are enough opportunities are there and there's a plumber or not, fine. Um, Apart from all these things, we need to also see that how much the state governments, and this is the biggest question which I've been actually raising, how much the state governments will be able to sustain these laborers who have actually come back, or the workers, or the citizens, the local people, in the light of the upcoming elections which are going to happen in the few states in the next uh, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. Like, for example, Bihar is going to be the first. It's going to be a typical example to be actually read about the case study, that how Bihar is going to sustain these people. If the government does not find a good jobs for these people, it may go against them. Fine. If they find a good jobs and sustainability, it may go for them. Fine. And it will all depend upon that how strongly the government is able to work on it. Fine, and do that. So I'm actually I'm not a fortune teller, but I am actually expecting that very soon we will see reverse migration part 2, fine, and that reverse migration part 2 will be that these sets of people will start moving back to their work or to the urban area. And then there will be a challenge which will come, that how how well we are how well these factories, the small institutions, the MSMEs of the country have actually activated their factories, so that these guys can actually be re-employed or redeployed over there. There's a big opportunity which actually comes for bigger companies like HUL and all, that how they can actually shift their bigger factories closer to the rural areas, where these guys can be employed, or the skilled laborers who have um moved from urban area to the rural area, these guys can be employed. But will it happen in 6 months, 9 months? That has to be the biggest the question in front of us, and which we need to answer it. Because, and today, with this reverse migration, fine, uh, we cannot now keep what's happening in India and what's happening in Bharat, because now Bharat, India, India, Bharat is all mixed. Right? It's actually a one group which has become, and it is getting impacted in a big way.
Great. Thank you so much for elaborating on this and bringing some few questions that I guess we'll see ahead in the next few days. Raghu, there's a lot of challenges, right? There's a lot of challenges, and I know that you have been providing electricity also to bank, um, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry. I just hear some noise. I hope it's not disturbing anyone. You're providing a lot of the. So I think one of the main problem in the rural area is the connectivity, right?
Yeah, the energy-centric job creation is what we are looking at. And so I think Prashant elaborated a few points. So the reverse migration phase two is already beginning to happen. So while some people are still going back to villages, there is again the organized manufacturing companies are trying to get them back. So this chaos is going to happen. But it's anybody's guess on how many people would settle back in these villages because many of them are emotional. They went back to their home because it was an emotional need. And they are staying there because they are upset with all of us. We didn't take care of them. And they would remain so for some time, but as Prashant was saying, after a year, I don't know if they can't make their living, they'll probably come back. So this is a back and forth phenomena. But I see three things. Number one, as you also said, this is the first time in the independent history we have skilled people back in the rural area. So we have to think of something by which we leverage their presence in the rural area. A number of things can be done. So we are focusing on the one sector, which is the agro-based livelihood. So organic farming is very labor intensive. And if we can find a way, if they have a small land holding, and if we can build a model around their land holding for organic farming, and then take it forward 2, 3 steps. We not only make them productive with our energy inputs, we also take them forward to the market linkage. So there are a number of firms in the country which are focused on market access. So we are looking at how to provide them market access, and we will help them to go to the market quickly. And all this combined with the energy access and technology together. So this is one aspect that we are looking at. And the second aspect that we are looking at is those who have gone back, it is again area specific. One solution, for example, we work extensively in Uttarakhand. Agro-based livelihood may not be the solution right now because they haven't done enough of water ponds and water storage, and the hydels are dried out. Unlike Himachal is very agro-based livelihood, but it may be too late to create that. So we'll have to look at a different combination where there is some agricultural income, some bit of tourism income, some bit of some other activity, or even an activity from rural area serving the metro. So there is a possibility of setting up a chain of let's say BPOs or call centers. I don't understand why do we need to have call centers in Gurgaon and run tons and tons and tons of air conditioners. You don't need to. You can have. There is a company which did that, but they didn't get proper funding. You can set up in Nainital, you can set up in Mussoorie, and you can set up in all these places, and they're all good English-speaking, well-educated graduates available. So there have been attempts in the past, and maybe these didn't survive because of lack of electricity. So our entire focus is creating abundance of electricity because the cost of solar has come down. You take it all, you take as much as you can and create your business activity around electricity. So this is the current thought process, and we're looking for support. There are some venture impact investors who are open, but I think there is a change that is required on the impact investors' thought process also.
Exactly. I'm going to keep on talking with you, Raghu, on this because you also mentioned about the linkages and the market that needs to be created. And also, what kind of partnership would you want to have going ahead? Because I know that we have different people here. We have investor, we have social entrepreneur, we have NGO. So going ahead, what kind of partnership are you looking ahead, and what kind of market link that you would like to see created ahead? Right.
For me, yeah. As you said, the collaborative model that we are looking at is, at this point of time, money is very important. I mean, if an educated entrepreneur like me with bald hair and gray hair and all gone is finding difficult to find the patient capital or soft money or philanthropic capital, whatever you call, it's going to be a lot more difficult to find that money for the rural entrepreneurs. So there is one assumption, as somebody was saying, Pankaj was saying, I think, not all of them are capable of being entrepreneurs. They have gone back. We want to create a lot of micro enterprises, but they may not be capable of becoming entrepreneurs. So the first building block is creating those kind of low cost, easy incubation system where they are put through that for a few months, and I think government can definitely support that. There are programs on that. So skilling them to become an entrepreneur, to take more risk, and then finding money. These two are the important building blocks. And finally, technology playing a role to give them the market access to the potential customer. For example, in the agro business, there's a lot of things happening already. There are restaurants in Bangalore which take the output from the farm directly to the table. They call it farm to table, and they would like to scale up this in every city, and they're very resourceful. What they are not doing, what they are finding it difficult, is the reliable input to them week after week, day after day. So I think we have to play this role of market linkage. So there is a big role for the non-profit organizations working on skilling, microfinancing, and the kind of incubation or the entrepreneur building activity and the market linkage.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you for that thought. And I will go back to Pankaj. Pankaj, I think Raghu talked about, livelihood and the market linkage. You work especially with women empowerment also. Could you tell us also what kind of linkages that you're looking for them? What kind of market opportunity are you looking to go when you go ahead, and where can people help you in this?
So, I think very pertinent points raised by Prashant on the reverse migration, and I like one point about Raghu is you actually in the reverse migration you have a lot of skilled workforce coming back. So I think recognition of prior learning as a strategy is a huge focus area. One thing is, and Raghu touched upon it, is most of the entrepreneurs in the village have been necessity entrepreneurs. They have not been job creators. We spoke earlier, Carolyn. It's not, entrepreneurship is very glamorous. The technology world makes it sound very glamorous. What we need in India, what we need in rural India is job creation. You don't need code jobs there. You need people who, and especially this situation is about fulfilling basic needs. I think there's a lot of ambition around wants will disperse. It's about health, food, safety, which are very basic needs. And what the virus has done is the virus is not following any rules. It's a community that stays together, and the social contract is going to beat it. There's no cure yet. So the social contract is look out for each other and give fulfill the basic needs. So, and as I said, in rural India, there's been a migration to the cities because there's been no opportunities there. Nothing has changed. So what has happened now is the school to work transitions. The youth are more likely to be very unemployed, and the school to work transition is still the same. And what has happened now is the urban to rural, money pumping into the rural India also will stop. So in terms of entrepreneurship, what we see is we won't have job creators. I don't think. I think we are a long way away from there. Mass entrepreneurship, micro enterprise is, as Raghu says, it's a holy grail we are looking for. What we'll have is someone who's a necessity entrepreneur, not having and not able to become one because he's not been able to get a job. Actually, now having that as an only option. So you'll have to create the mindsets and the capital and the linkages, connecting consumers to producers to raw materials, and taking a word out of the entrepreneurship lingo. I think for the entrepreneur, life will be hyperlocal. You have to look at the market within probably a 50-100 kilometers radius. All right, you're not going to have long supply chains. I think India is a federation, and all the federal states will start behaving like separate countries. Some states which control the virus better will progress, and some will not. We already see it happening. All right, so I think the key step forward is to be hyperlocal. Look at local economies. Look at local needs: banking, food, shelter. Women has been, I think it's as a thought process, clear thought process. We focus a lot on the women because one is traditionally there, it's not been very inclusive. Number of women in the workforce or in employment itself, in entrepreneurship itself has been less. The choice has sort of not been ours. It's been thrusted upon us. 70% of the trainees in the classroom are women, primarily because they are dropped out of school. So what we are looking at is not entrepreneurs. We are looking at a transition model where we have a community enterprise. So we have these groups of women in a program called Entrepreneurship, working in a community enterprise where we have removed the risk of the market by ensuring a certainty in buying whatever they produce. So we first established the market linkage, and then we have this groups of women congregating together in a safe space we have created. And we take them to three things. One is we take them to entrepreneurship mindsets, and then we take them to getting a domain skill in terms of whatever we want to create an entrepreneurial ecosystem on. So in our centers in North Karnataka, it's about tailoring, and we have a market access for that, so that whatever they produce is being bought back. And then we have this transitory period of 1 year where we develop. First, we teach them how to be self-reliant before they go out and help someone else get a job, because a lot of these women, 90% of these women have taken part in an economic activity for the first time. And what we see is this is a longer term solution, because I mean, putting it in a humorous way, when men will be women, I think, but women have that much more staying power in getting families out of poverty. All right, you put money into the hands of the women. They'll look at the healthcare, they'll look at the education, they'll start saving, and we found that is a great way forward. But it has to be part of a collective. So our strategy is about having a collective, a self-help group, and we sort of want to link in a federation. So we are not looking at individual entrepreneurs as of now. All right, we individual entrepreneurs, I think we will do it around the recognition of prior learning, as Raghu said. If you come with a skill back to the village, and I've spoken to about 6,000 migrant families so far, because we did a lot of food security. We distributed about 6 lakh dry ration kits. To about 40% of them are not going to come back, and anybody who comes back will only come back after Diwali. All right, so there's going to be a huge skill base, very rightly said, in the village, which we could utilize to probably create a better economic market in the village around the skills. So you aggregate those skills, make it better. And in terms of women, you bring self-reliance first. Get them to take part in a economic activity, and then federate that. So it's more about self-help groups.
Yes, I do agree on that. And I think, Prashant, you must be having more to add on this, what Pankaj has started. Could you please share with us also your thoughts?
Yeah. See, the biggest point what we all are actually trying to address over here, the people who have actually moved, we all are talking about the way we are looking at, right, the mindset of these people, where the Pankaj actually rightly said that the 40% will not return, right, maybe for longer period, and maybe for Diwali. So what used to happen, and I'll just cite a good example for it, right, then many times people, these rural people who used to stay in different urban locations like Delhi, Bombay, Gujarat, and all. They even in Ludhiana, Punjab, and all. They never used to go back home for years, right? 3 years, and all. And then they used to go once, right? And they used to carry lots of stuff and all. And we used to tell them, when he will come back. We really never used to know that when he will come back, right? So that's a challenge where, because he used to have money to spend over there, and he was the only person who was going to his village. Here there are thousands of people who have gone with the family, fine, without knowing. That means they manage that today. So that's the one of the biggest concern what we are actually facing, fine, and what we have started identifying people, that whoever has gone from Delhi, Bombay, and the other people that in the villages where our artisans have been actually located at, fine, that to identify them, if they are having some certain skills which we can actually repurpose what we are doing in Delhi, Bombay, and other places, fine, like simple packaging, simple modeling, which can get operated, which can be done there itself, and these guys can find a sustainability or job opportunity there itself for the time, you may say 6 months, 9 months. And what happened, right? That in this process, we found good tailors, fine, who are now based at smaller villages. Fine. Best example is in Jharkhand, a family who actually moved from Delhi. They have collaborated almost 40 women, 30 kilometers away from Ranchi. There is a village called Itki, fine, Itki Gurgi, and then they have collaborated 40 women, 35 women, and they are now working making the mask, fine, which is actually not coming down to Delhi and Bombay, fine, which is getting utilized in Jharkhand itself, fine, because the government wants those masks immediately. So that guy who moved from here, he became the, I'll not say entrepreneur, but he became a leader because he had experience, exposure of collaborating people. So we have to identify these people. The government has to help, or we all have to help the government together collectively, and identify these people and create these types of activity where the livelihood of the urban area has to get supplied from the rural area for next 8-9 months.
Yes, so there's a lot going ahead for all of us to think about, how to re-strategize, re-see things. But again, I think technology plays a big point in this, and the connectivity. I've read something about the former president Abdul Kalam, who's in 2012, said that to become an economically developed nation by 2020. He already thought about 2020. India need to focus on sustainable development of village by providing urban amenities in rural area. I do believe that there were, some attempt of a program called Pura and all, but for which was not very successful. Raghu, can you tell about this, about how technology will be important going ahead, how connectivity will be important, also the knowledge of connectivity, knowledge of whether it's a phone, whether it's a computer, and all. What is your take on this, Raghu?
Yeah, sure. I think I already mentioned, the technology is a very important role. I'll take one example of Himachal Pradesh because we work extensively in Uttarakhand, Himachal, and Sikkim, less in Sikkim, but a lot in Uttarakhand and Himachal. We see a big difference. And there was a chief minister many years back in Himachal who actually brought a very strong policy that every house should develop their own, backyard into a farming or agriculture, and that's how Himachal is flushed with apples and cherries and other expensive fruits. So the proof of that is this COVID-19. When there are Himachalis working outside, I mean, they may be lawyers and doctors and professionals who don't find opportunities, but those kind of labor work, they don't come for those menial work. So if you look at the COVID-19 data, after this reverse migration happened, Uttarakhand was okay about 3-4 weeks back, but the cases have surged. It has gone past 2,000 and it's still going up. Whereas Himachal is pretty controlled, and In terms of cases, it's only 20, 30, and these are also in those areas which are on the border of Punjab and the urbanized areas. So it's very clear that their economic model is very successful, and that is helping them in this. So that is the true sustainability. And if you travel across Himachal, you will see that there are slight, higher, ratio of prosperity out there. So whatever we do now, it has to be a very long-term, planning. We can do some, short-term fixes, but it's not going to work out. So I feel that everything will go back to agriculture, and because the only thing that you can do where you can employ as many people as possible in rural area is to create either self-entrepreneurship, self-driven enterprises, one-man, two-man show, or a small enterprise of just a family, or a little bigger enterprise of 10, 15, 20 people. So as Pankaj was saying, one is highly localized, other is what I call as R2R, rural to rural. So between two districts or in a cluster of 50 to 100 kilometers, and then R to U, rural to urban. So I think we need thinking. I'm actually a little surprised that I've been talking to my friends in IIMs, and they're not even thinking. There's not even one seminar, online seminar, that any of the IIMs have organized on how do we put together a management structure, a management model, which we can plunge in, which government can also, be asked to support. So, but I come back to this money. There is just no money. There is no money going into rural, and without money going into rural, nothing can happen. Whether it is training their enterprises or building infrastructure. For example, we have now technology to run cold chain. We don't need big refrigerators. We can run solar-powered cold chain, big numbers. We can set up 10,000 cold chain all on solar. We don't need grid power. We can store at least 85 to 90 tons of any vegetable at their desired temperature in just a cluster of 5 kilometers. So much technology and capacity we have, but somebody has to fund it. These farmers cannot buy equipments worth 5 lakh, 6 lakh rupees. So I think this is where I find that the traction with the impact investors, they're still in the old school, and the worst is the corporate. I come from a corporate background. So like, for example, the first thing that all these big corporates are doing is laying off people. Why should they do that? I mean, I have a runway to pay salary for 5 months, such a small company. A company like JCB, I'm just giving an example, not pointing fingers, they have laid off a mega company, and that too, they're going to make huge money with this coal block being decontrolled. They can't even pay for 2 months. It's ridiculous. So this is the problem with the mindset. They don't want to give money. They don't want to spend money on this. So I talk like an activist, unfortunately, but that's the reality.
Yes.
We need to get this traction with how we can't be dependent on government for everything. So the societies have come together, and this blended finance of philanthropy and soft money have to go in. But I find some people, I've talked to quite a few individual, HNIs, high net worth individuals. They're open. They're looking for models. We all need to collaborate. Everyone in this forum, we all need to collaborate and go to those like-minded people and make a pilot work. That's what I would think.
Great. Thank you so much for your suggestion, and I think it's going to inspire others also to maybe have a better look on what you're saying, and maybe develop this. We're going to go to some question. We have a few questions. The first question is for Pankaj. Pankaj, what solution alternative options are available for female wage labor in agriculture who may be squeezed out of work by returning to labor from urban area? So, for example, a female agri-labor in rural Bihar. Thanks.
Okay, I think I'll answer it in a macroeconomic way. All right. See, traditionally, rural India has been about labor leverage, but there's been a couple of things that has happened on the policy front. A repeal of the APMC is a huge unlock on agriculture. Traditionally, farmers went into manufacturing, which traditionally didn't grow and couldn't absorb this. But with the APMC repealed, I think there's going to be a lot of aggregation of farmers selling direct to markets. The markets have opened up there. A lot of the controls of the 70s have gone. In fact, we are looking at three spaces for entrepreneurship for the women. That is healthcare, education, and agriculture. All right, agriculture, because of the APMC, because our processing rate of fruits and horticulture is so low, I actually expect to see a huge uptick on that. So, and at the end of the day, if you see, these are civil society issues. So, civil society actually works at the intersect of policy, markets, and institution. I think agriculture is the silver lining of what happened now. APMC has been, I don't want to get into that. It's not a supply chain discussion, but APMC has been holding back the agriculture sector for decades now. So I think there'll be a temporary loss of income. Yes, there's going to be a pain. The people at the margins always get hit the hardest. But if you are in agriculture now, around agriculture, I'll see a totally renaissance in India, I think, in the next 24 months.
Great. Thank you so much for answering the question. There's one more question. Taking in account the availability of seed fund to these people, will a person in rural environment be able to think about starting a venture, even a necessity-based venture? Would you like to reply to this, Pankaj?
I think I come from a funding background. So in fact, the fun part of this pandemic is all capital now has become catalytic capital. It's all become impact capital because everything is going to rebuild society. I don't think you're going to see too much of funds going into technology and urban spaces. I think there's a huge reconstruction coming up. Funding will be easy if you're going to, position yourself around the basic needs of the people. All right, I'm not saying, but don't make a venture for funds. All right, make it to put a problem. But like, take for example the Mudra loan. Now there's a 5,000 crores on street vendors. When did we ever hear in India that a street vendor can take 10,000 rupees loan and set up something? All right, the Mudra loan is there's an interest subvention of 1.5%. A lot of the CSR funds which I'm talking to are actually moving beyond programs and into outcomes. They want entrepreneurship. All right, today a lot of the CSR funds will become catalytic capital to actually grow outcomes, economic outcomes around entrepreneurship. If there's a silver lining, I think there's a great time to be an entrepreneur. There's a problem in society. Funds will actually come in, and I think it'll be a lower cost funds and more patient funds, more gentle funds. More humanitarian funds. And I think to be a social entrepreneur now would be a best time to do it. There's pain in society, plus there is a willingness with people to actually walk the talk in terms of capital.
Very true. Very true. Thank you so much for sharing this. I think also the love for CSR have changed now. So social entrepreneurship also may receive also grant, right? So that is also good for you social entrepreneur or even. So there's another question here. Maybe I'll ask Prashant to answer this question. So given the time frame of migration from urban to rural, which has happened so fast and sudden, will it be possible for a person to organize resource and still sustain till that time, given that they have left their infrastructure created over 10 years? Prashant?
Interestingly, these guys have actually not gone on the, like, for example, the way they were actually living over here and they have left from the urban area to the rural area. They have not gone to a newer place to set up things. So on an infrastructure level, interestingly, these all these people who have moved out, they have actually having a good house or a sustainable house to live and all. The question which will be there, that means that for how long they will be able to maintain that, sustain that. Fine, government has tried their level best. Fine, there are as Pankaj mentioned, that there are people who are actually coming forward, and the lots of CSR fund is actually getting pumped into maintaining these people's sustainability and all. The lots of PDS schemes have actually come out. So I am frankly speaking not at all worried about till Diwali. Fine. So because November is the time, fine, and I'm not worried, literally not worried about till Diwali, because it has this COVID has also turned two things in all of us, right? I believe that it has made us more humane. Fine. I personally believe into it. Fine. I hope I'm right, and I should be right for 130 crore people of the country, fine, at least for my own country. Fine. The worldwide, it has made it more humane people. At the same time, it has made all of us little impatient more. So we all have lost patience, fine. So though we are looking for soft funding, soft loans, the other stuffs and all, the overall society has lost the, because when you're in lockdown under the pressure, the patience has gone down and all. uh, they would be looking for a faster things, faster turnaround, but the turnaround will only, India will see the turnaround only post Diwali, because that is a time when we are hopeful that productions will be there, fine. And here, the most interesting thing, I'm sure we all have noticed this, fine, that due to the COVID, the two-wheeler sale has jumped up like anything. So the automobile industry, fine, which was actually sluggish in last 18 months, fine, has seen a tremendous jump in last 3 months in the sale of just two-wheelers, and it has just happened because the restrictions and the public transport not being available, or the restriction of people getting into the things and all. So I am actually very hopeful that all those things is going to turn the wheel faster, uh, and pass on the funds to the right sets of people. Fine, it will reach to that the rural areas also. Uh, and it is like this, that everybody is working for it, and that's a very positive side of it, that everybody is trying to do something. Raghu is trying to do something, Pankaj is trying to, we are doing, many other people are actually trying to do something for the rural side, and to make this cycle run, the restart the India in somehow the other.
Very true. I think that is commemorable for each one for the excellent work that you're doing. I think we have only a couple of minutes to close our session. I'd like to ask Raghu, what is the one piece of advice would you like to give to someone who would like to start a social enterprise? What are your word of wisdom?
On the lighter side, if he's not married, then he can forget about getting married for a few more years. Nobody's going to give him a girl to get married unless he finds one. Well, I think the challenge is to find capital. Because, as I said, I agree with Prashant and Pankaj that at a larger scale, people have become more humane and more considerate. But structurally, things have not changed. For example, we have an outstanding of, let's say, about $1 million from various banks and various. It's all private. We haven't taken any loan from anybody from public sector. None of the private sector banks, none of the NBFCs are willing to even talk to us about what finance minister has said, that 20% of the outstanding should automatically come. So this is a serious problem. And I have to now explore all possible ways. We are tagging Anurag Thakur and Madam on Twitter, and then they are responding. This is no way. So I think the piece of advice to anyone who's trying to become social entrepreneur now, yes, this is a great time, as Pankaj said, because you will be most successful if you enter now. Have some capital, have some patience to succeed. I think that's very important. You'll have to think of a runway maybe beyond, next March. Then it will take off. So I come back to that resource is very, very important at this point of time.
Thank you so much, Sir Raghu. Would you like to add on this, Pankaj? What is your pearl of wisdom here, and what can you share with everyone?
It's that old adage, India resides in the villages. I think it's time, there's a spotlight there. We should focus on that. Think hyperlocal. At Headline, we talk about Ela Bhatt a lot, the founder of Seva. So quite many years back, she wrote that if you want rural communities to thrive, give them everything within 100-mile radius. Banking, education, food, everything in a 100-mile radius. I think that adage should hold true now. Nothing much pearls of wisdom. I'm not, don't have that wisdom in me. But I think, it's what we deliver at Headline. Create a basic security net of basic income for people around basic fulfilled goods. Enable people to live with their head held highs. I think that should be the purpose of entrepreneurship. Solve a problem, solve a structural problem, as Raghuraman said. I've run multiple businesses. You'll always have a cash problem. All right. So it just takes different forms. But you need to get the basic thing right, which is it should create a better society, create a world of abundance. And I think that if that social entrepreneurship it's a good time to get into that space, because there's going to be a lot of reconstruction, alternate livelihoods. It's a good time to do that.
Great. What about? Thank you so much, Pankaj. What about Prashant? Hi. Oh, okay, I'm back.
Yeah.
What about Prashant? Your fellow wisdom, please.
And here again, I will actually tell you that since I've been actually talking about the rural sector for almost 9 years, and we have been actually working on this particular agenda of livelihood and culture preservation. Right? Fortunately, we always found things there that how things can actually work out. Right? And casually, right, in the month of 19 October, I had actually, during one of the session, I had actually mentioned about one small thing, and which I don't know may actually come true in the coming years for all of us, right? That India will rewrite its story, fine, with the rural enterprise. Right? It is the rural India which will actually rewrite the next 10 years is the India revival will depend on the rural enterprises, right? Be it farm, be it non-farm, or whatever we actually talk about it. Because reason is this, that the way the 90s was actually written by IT development, DPOs, and all those things, right? The 2020 onwards, or the next 10 years is going to be the rural year for our country, right? It is all about that how sooner we actually understand this, right? Be it organic farming, be it like, for example, setting up the things what Pankaj is saying about within the 100 miles, and that was the one of the effort what the financial inclusion which Raghu had actually done it. That means that the bringing the banks over there, fine, or any development which is, it is also like this, that the last man standing on the line, fine, how the things are reaching to him, fine, that will also make a huge amount of difference, fine. And when we're looking at it, it is very important that means let's not get surprised that urban people start moving to rural areas to finding jobs. Let's not get surprised with this particular point. That means because to make these things available over there, you need people, maybe skilled people, maybe little patient people who will actually teach them, guide them, make them this what do you call internet make available, or the mobile things, which is actually what we are talking about, connecting. Like, for example, Ministry of Textile actually has said that 50 lakhs artisan will be on GEM, fine, which is a government portal, fine. To get them on the gem, you need somebody to actually teach them how to get on the gem. And maybe that is the time for the urban people, the young guys, school dropouts of Pankaj, fine, can actually teach them how to get on the gem, fine, and move forward, fine. So it is a point of coexistence, working together, fine, and bringing out the, like, for example, if you get a chapati, one chapati, share it with four people, at least share it with four people.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for all your advice to everyone. I think the common point here is that there's so much opportunity going ahead. There's a lot of sustainability that can be done. Rural has great opportunity for growth, for development, and we do hope that we get more people, more company, like you said, to invest in the rural development, and also in the company in the also at the same time, and bringing everyone together. I think Pankaj says the collective action is needed. I think it's more needed than any time now. I would like to thank every one of you. You've brought so much precious information and inspiration for all of us. Thank you so much, Pankaj. Thank you, Prashant and Raghu. Thank you so much again. This session is over. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Thank you, Prashant.